Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jadesola, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some of the top mistakes that people make when they're getting into property investing. And I have to say, some of these mistakes I have actually made myself. Now, the first on my list would be that a lot of people don't even understand why they're going into property investing. It could be that maybe they're just trying to do it because, that's what is buzzing out there. That's what people are saying, or that's what people around them are doing. Not necessarily thinking deep as to why they want to do it. Not knowing why they want to invest in property will end up having like a knock-on effect on every other thing that they try to do while trying to invest. The other kind of mistake that people make is not even knowing what they want to do with the property. So, you want to buy a property. What exactly do you want to use the property for? And in a situation whereby, there's so much information out there, there's so many strategies out there, there's so many strategies that property gurus are also selling to people. People get confused sometimes and they don't even know what they want to do. And sometimes maybe they end up just picking a strategy that will not end up working either for their lifestyle or even for the location they have selected. I'll give you an example. So I had this client that told me that they wanted a property that they wanted to use as a serviced accommodation. I went ahead, secured the property, put in an offer, everything was going fine. Now, this my client went to check the property. It was a really huge property and it was really nice. And then he ended up saying, he wanted to use it as a HMO. Now, if he had known that he wanted to do HMO from the get-go, I wouldn't have gotten that property for him. Not because there was anything wrong with the property, but because there was an Article 4 regulation in that area and it was going to be really hard for him to use that property as a HMO. You understand what I'm saying? So when people don't know what they want to use the property for, they end up just picking any property in any location without really thinking through if that location is going to work for the strategy that they're now settling for down the line. Still speaking about, mistakes that people make around location, there's also issues that may come up with the actual location of the property and the things surrounding it, or things in close proximity to the property that may hinder them from being able to get mortgage. So an example is if you're buying a property and then it's close to a restaurant or a fast food joint, you're going to have a really hard time getting a mortgage on that because a lot of lenders don't like properties like that. And this is something that I even experienced firsthand myself, even though my property was not near a restaurant. Now, the property I just bought is actually opposite a matchday car park in Liverpool. And for me, that was an attraction. I liked the fact that there was a parking lot opposite the property. But guess what? This particular car park was an issue for a lot of high street lenders because they felt because it was opposite a matchday car park, there was just going to be a lot of rowdiness and they didn't think that the property was worth it. If you're not really thinking through about the location you're picking up for your property in terms of the strategy, whether it's going to work, you also need to be thinking about the lending criteria of potential lenders that may want to finance the property and where the property is. Another mistake that a lot of people make is not picking a property strategy that suits their financial situation and lifestyle. Let me speak about lifestyle first. Now, a lot of people actually think that property investing is passive. And it can be passive depending on the strategy that you go for. So let me give an example of someone that wants to invest passively in property and also wants to self-manage the investment property. And then they've now gone to select, say, a strategy like HMO or, serviced accommodation where, one, you're dealing with multiple tenants and you may have to, be replacing and be looking for new tenants every time someone moves out of a room. Or you select a strategy like service accommodation and you're self-managing and you don't have a team. It is a lot of work. It's not going to be passive, as opposed to if you just, buy a property, put a single tenant there on an AST contract for, say, a 12-month period. In that 12 months, it can be relatively passive for you unless there are, a lot of issues that the tenant is having with the property. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes people don't pick strategies that support the kind of lifestyle that they want with, their investment. So let's talk about a situation whereby you're picking a strategy that doesn't support your financial situation, right? Okay, so you've saved up all of this money and then you're picking a strategy like BRRR, which is buy, refurbish, refinance, rent, right? So you're buying a property that is maybe not in a very good condition or needs a bit of work to push the value up, and then you refinance that and then rent the property out, or you sell, depending on what you want to do as your exit strategy. People sell this strategy online as if it's something that you get into today and then you can come out of it and pull all your money out tomorrow, right? The reality of the situation is that it can take you between, I would say, maybe 3 months to 12 months to actually get to the other end. So let's say all your plan is around, making sure that you're out of the transaction within a few weeks. That is not going to happen, right? That you think that, you'll be able to get your money out, rent the property, start cash flow. It's not going to happen in reality that way, and not understanding that and picking that strategy with a limited amount of money, it's not going to work. So if, for example, you're financing that with a bridging loan, you're going to be paying interest. And bridging loan is not as cheap as if you're taking a mortgage straight up on the purchase of the property. So you thinking that, you just go in and out and then the property will start to pay for itself in a few weeks or in a few months may not necessarily be the reality of the situation. So people make all of these mistakes buying these properties, and then they're in the life of the transaction for a really long time. Now, the next mistake that people make is not getting a survey done. Now, this mistake I personally made very recently. And as someone that has bought a property before that got a survey done on it, help people to buy properties and always encourage them to get a survey done. Why didn't I get a survey? Now, a lot of the times when you're even getting the survey done, you almost cannot see anything maybe physically wrong with the property sometimes. And the report just comes and it's the same thing that it looks like everybody is writing. Oh, this issue is just because of the age of the property. Sometimes they actually see real issues with the property, right? So this time around, even though there was like a physical evidence in the property, why did Jadesola not get a survey done? Jadesola decided to believe the seller. Usually I don't believe estate agents when they're telling me stuff. I believe the seller when they told me, they just fixed the roof and all of that. They're just going to paint. Don't believe what anybody tells you is what I'm trying to say. Get a survey done, because not doing that survey, right, cost me a lot of money. I had to replace the roof. Roof is not cheap. Always get a survey done. It can cost you. Speaking of cost, one other mistake that people make is underestimating how much, the entire process of buying a property really costs. So from, getting a mortgage broker to your legals, to your deposit, to your stamp duty, to your refurb costs, right? People underestimate it. And sometimes people just save the exact amount of money without thinking about miscellaneous. And the honest truth is, you start to do a refurb, sometimes other things will come up. Sometimes it might be small money, sometimes it might be a lot of money. I'll give you another example. While I was buying my second property, now I'd bought the first one, there was no issue with how my company was registered, right? And on the second one, I got a call from my solicitors one day just telling me that, I've forgotten the name now, maybe it's the Articles of Association of the company that I had bought a property in, the first one, no issues, that there was an issue with it. Apparently, there's like a new direction from Companies House around, companies having 2 directors and using existing templates on the website, versus if you want to remain the sole director of your company, you can't use the existing template. Now, this was something I didn't budget for. And then they told me, they can help me to draft a new template that I can sign, and then they would upload to Companies House. That cost me, I think, additional £100 or £150 for them to do that for me. These are costs that I did not plan, but they were things that I had to absolutely do in order to proceed. So, there are situations like that something may just happen, and then you need to cough up money. So you can't just be looking at the exact cost that you can see. You always have to plan and have a buffer, for contingencies and things that may happen that you just did not plan for. Now, this next mistake is one thing that I see with a lot of people as well, right? And I know, as exciting as it is, when people buy properties, everyone tells them congratulations But at the same time, a lot of people actually think that it's a get rich quick scheme. And it is not. It is far from that. Yes, it's an avenue for you to build wealth, but it's over time. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. And if anyone tells you that is the case, I can tell you they are lying to you. They are lying to you. You're not likely also going to get rich from buying one property and getting rich quick. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, when people go into this and then it's not what they think it is, they think they have made a mistake, right? No, you didn't make a mistake, right? It's happening exactly how it's meant to happen. Your rental income is not suddenly going to, make you have all of the money you've put into the property back immediately. It's going to take time. I did talk about the BRR strategy. Even though, you can do it in a way that you end up making money from, adding value to a property and refinancing and pulling your money out, it's not going to happen overnight. So you always need to plan and think about the fact that this is not a get rich quick scheme. It's a long-term game. It's an investment strategy that you have to be extremely patient with it for you to actually realize the reward. One other mistake that I see is that people go for trainings and mentorships and just think that, those trainings and mentorships are going to give them all of the answers. I'm sorry to burst this bubble, but it's not going to happen. There is a difference between theory and practical. Right? Don't let any property guru that is collecting your money lie to you that, once you follow some exact steps, then you're going to get exact outcomes that they got. The time they bought the property, the conditions, the interest rates, all of those things play a role. I can tell you that if you buy, property A on a street and buy property B, just next door, you're going to experience something different from buying those two properties. They are never going to be the same. You're going to have something that you're going to learn from doing up property A, right? That you may be able to apply to property B, but I can also assure you there will be new lessons that you will learn from doing up property B. It doesn't matter whether it's the same price, same location, same everything. Property training is meant to be like a guideline. Right? Sometimes they are not the full source of truth. They might be true at a particular point in time, but guess what? Today, they might not be true. I made a video maybe a few weeks ago and I talked about, stamp duty being 3% on your investment property. Today, it's 5% because just this week, during the new budget, it was announced that now you're going to be paying a higher, stamp duty on your investment property. So you have to really think about the fact that when you're listening to your mentors or the property gurus, right, you still have to think about the fact that you may experience something very differently. Also, you need to think about the fact that a lot of these gurus will teach you and tell you the things based on their own experience, right? Your experience is going to be different. And I know this because I have attended a lot of these trainings and I've learned more from doing myself than from any property training that I've gone for. That is not to say that there's no value in going for these trainings. All I'm saying is be open-minded so that when things happen that doesn't particularly fit into what you have been taught about a strategy, about how it works, about how they're making their money, that you're able to live with yourself and you're not feeling like, you've been scammed. Yes, there's a situation whereby it's actually outright scam. However, you have to think about it in a way that your experience may actually be very different from the theory that you've learned. The next mistake that I see a lot of people making is that they're not able to recognize potential in a property. And I think I made this mistake as well when I first started out. Like when I go for viewings, I was looking for the perfect house, the one that did not have any issues whatsoever, right? So if I entered a house that looked some type of way, I would just walk away. I wasn't able to see the potential. And because I also didn't have enough knowledge about, how you can uplift, a property with a few £1,000s, that it doesn't have to be, very expensive for you to do up, I also could not see the potential in those properties, right? So it's something that over time, you're going to have to train yourself, and it's going to come from experience as well, right? But, just because a property looks bad doesn't mean that it's bad. Another mistake that people make is that they actually also think that they can dictate, the rent that they can earn on a property. There's a limit or a cap that you can rent your property for, because that is what is attainable in that area. Just because you've spent so much money, doing the property up, does not mean that you're just going to be able to set a very high rent on the property because of how much you've spent on the property. You're still going to be restricted to stay within the amounts that people would typically rent that type of property in that area. Yes, you might be a little bit expensive, but it cannot be that different. And sometimes people are not able to, adjust to the fact that, just because they've spent so much money and they had a different expectation on like the rental income they think that they can earn on the property, and when that's not true, they feel extremely disappointed. You need to be realistic. From when you're actually buying the property is when you're doing research as to how much you can, let the property for. If you're letting it out as a single family home, if you're doing HMO, like how much can you potentially rent it for, so that you're not disappointed simply because you spent so much money doing it up. The next mistake I'm going to talk about is when people are timing the market instead of thinking about the time in the market. I see a lot of people not investing in property because they're waiting for the perfect time to invest. Oh, interest rates are high now. They don't want to invest. While they're not thinking about the fact that possibly property prices are cheaper now because interest rates are actually high. And that by the time interest rates will come down, right, property prices will go up. There's also the fact that the price of the property today, if you're waiting by next year, that same property may be worth more. So sometimes you think you're saving by trying to time the market, but you're actually not saving. Sometimes it's actually okay to take a little bit of hit today, right, in terms of like interest rate, and not wait because you don't know. When you really understand how investing works, you know that a lot of it is around speculation. Speculation around historical things that have happened. So, property prices always go up. It's an assumption, right? Has it happened? Yes, it has happened. Will it continue to happen? Maybe, maybe not. We've seen situations where, the housing market has crashed, and it has happened before. Will it happen again? Maybe, right? So at the end of the day, you thinking, you're going to wait because you're hoping that something is going to happen in future, or because experts are telling you about things that are going to happen in future, it may not happen that way. Everybody may say interest rate is going to come down. What if it doesn't come down? Does that mean that, you continue to miss out on opportunities to invest today? I understand that there are no right or wrong ways to think about these things, but sometimes they may end up being a bad decision, not buying at the time you were meant to buy because you were waiting for a perfect condition before investing. Another mistake that people make is not understanding the impact of the type of interest rates that they're actually, getting on their mortgage, whether it's fixed or variable. In layman's terms, I'll just say, if you get a fixed interest rate on the initial term of the mortgage, let's say it's 5 years, it means that in 5 years, you pay the same amount on a monthly basis, nothing changes, even if, for example, Bank of England base rate keeps changing, nothing is going to impact your interest rate. Now, if you go on the variable rate, as the name is, it's a variable rate. It means that as, Bank of England rate is changing, whether it's up or down, it's having an impact on how much you're paying. If the rate comes down, it's good for you. However, If it's the opposite, where the interest rate is going up, you're going to be paying more. And a lot of people don't understand this. They're just looking at, maybe how much they're going to be paying immediately. And to be honest, like if you're taking like a fixed rate versus a variable rate, these lenders, they know how to make, the options look very confusing, that sometimes you're actually not even sure which one you should go for. And with a lot of speculations out there where people are going to go like, why do you want to fix your rate? Why don't you just do the variable? Because we're predicting that this is going to happen. Or maybe people will just tell you, do the variable because, hey, things are going to happen this way. Like, there's so much noise. You have to really understand what the implication of staying on a fixed rate or on a variable rate for a period of time, what that is going to mean to you. And one of the reasons that this is also important and part of the mistakes that people make is that when you are on like a variable interest rate and the interest rate now goes up, like if you did not plan for that, right, it's going to hit you so badly. Sometimes, it can be very costly if you didn't plan for that. Another mistake that people make is that they don't actually think about maintenance costs. They just think that, once they buy a property, then that's it. Right? Things can happen when you buy a property. My first property, for example, I ended up needing to change the entire bathroom because it was giving me a headache, right? And every time someone is calling you to be complaining about the toilet, the bath, and this and that, that's your headache as the landlord to make sure that it's fixed. If the boiler breaks down, that's your headache. You have to make sure it's fixed. There's so many things that you are responsible for as a landlord, and sometimes people don't think about that, right? So it's not just when you're thinking about, I'm just collecting rent. And sometimes some people, as they're collecting that rent, they're spending it. They're not setting money aside for maintenance, right? Or all of the annual, maybe things that they need to renew, right? They're not thinking about all of that. They think that, once I've bought it, then that's it. That is not usually the case. One other mistake that people make when investing in property is not using professionals or not doing the due diligence because they're using professionals. And I know that this sounds a bit tricky, right? Let's give an example. Let's say you want to do a refurb on a property, right? There's nothing stopping you from, doing DIY. However, know your limits. Know the things that, this is above your pay grade, right? For you to be doing by yourself, right? Know the things that you need to engage professionals to do. You have to be able to recognize it. I do a lot of DIY. You guys have seen my videos, right? But there's certain things that that you need to absolutely get a professional to do. For example, I remember when they were fixing the roof of the new property that I just bought, they found out that the neighbor's roof also needed work. And then the neighbor, was a tenant that was in there, called the landlord and was like, hey, you know what? They actually said the roof is bad and blah, 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 blah. You know what the guy said? The guy said he had a handyman that was going to come and fix the roof. Just think about that. Not a professional, roof expert, a handyman that will come and fix the roof. There's just some things that you probably shouldn't gamble on if you're trying to invest in property. Because, if you take the shortcut today, you may end up having to pay for it in future. Another thing is not doing your own due diligence just because you're using professionals. You have to recognize these guys are business people and they're trying to make the maximum money that they can make, right? So you have to do your own due diligence. Your due diligence could be comparing quotes, right? Having multiple professionals come and assess the same job, right? And then you're now making a decision based on, the options that you have. Not doing due diligence about even the professionals that you're hiring is another mistake that people make. And that is not to say that even if you get like a builder that is good, that has worked for someone that doesn't mean that they will still not mess up. However, why won't you do a bit of research? Check out their reviews. One thing that I would always do as part of even my due diligence when I'm doing a refurb and I'm contracting it out to a builder is that I would have gone into that house myself and I would have noted things that I think that should be fixed. I may not necessarily share those things with the builder because I want to vet the builder myself. Is this person someone that pays attention to details? So when they're giving me their quotes and they're giving me a breakdown of the things that they're going to do in the house, because I've done my own due diligence, I'm not assuming that their list is complete. I'm comparing the list of the work that they want to do with my own list of things that I've identified behind their back to see, okay, is it covering the major things? Have they missed out something major? It starts to put red flags in my head when I'm thinking about, whether or not I want to go with that builder. So it's very important that even when you're using professionals, you still owe it to yourself to do a bit of due diligence, especially if it's not something that you've done before. So when you don't know, you don't assume that a professional is right. It's okay for you to do your due diligence so that you don't end up overpaying or underestimating the work that needs to be done or hiring a wrong builder to do your work because the consequences are not great. Another mistake that people make when they are buying a property to rent out is that they don't take out the rent guarantee insurance. And what that does for you is that if your tenant doesn't pay, the insurance is going to kick in and then they're going to start to pay you, the rent that the tenant is not paying. And sometimes because you're trying to save a bit of money up front, because yes, these things, they add up, right? You end up being in a situation whereby if your tenant is not paying, you now have to be paying your mortgage out of pocket, right? A lot of this rent guarantee insurance will even cover like your legal cost if you have to take the tenant to court. So it's very important that, if you're thinking about buying an investment property and letting it out, that you consider taking out all of these sort of like insurances that can protect you against, issues that may arise in future. The last mistake I'm going to talk about is that people don't want to make mistakes. And I know it's a very difficult thing, especially when you're investing in property. It is not cheap. A lot of us have saved for a very long time, right? We don't want to make mistakes, right? But in a bid to not want to make mistakes, we now end up not even investing at all. That is a mistake in itself because it's just part of life. Mistakes are normal. And how are you going to learn if you're not making mistakes? Yes, there's some that will be extremely costly, right? But there's enough information out there for you to sort of like maybe try and avoid some of those very obvious ones. However, that you will not make a mistake, forget about it. You will make a mistake. So instead of, holding on to your money and not investing, whether it's in property or anything else, it's not okay. Because the longer you wait, right, it means that you're going to be learning that same lesson that you don't want to learn today. You're probably learning it in future. When maybe possibly the impact of it, you probably would not be able to quickly recover like if you had done it today. So essentially, what I'm saying is if you are sitting on the fence and not investing in property because you're afraid of making mistakes, it is a mistake on its own. Because all you have to do is pick a strategy, do a bit of research, speak to professionals, and then go for it. It's as simple as that. You will make mistakes, you will learn along the way. Hopefully, it will not be something that will be very costly. Anyways, this video is very long. I know there's so many more mistakes that I didn't talk about in this video. I will try and maybe make more videos. But if you've enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. And please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.